Great. Yes, wonderful. So good morning, good afternoon, or evening, whichever applies to your time zone. We are excited to have you join us for the IFLA CPDWL webinar titled Open Science Unveiled, Empowering Knowledge Sharing in the Digital Age. As the IFLA CPDWL session chair, I'm delighted to welcome you to today's session. This webinar reflects our dedication to fostering global collaboration within the library community, made possible by collaborative efforts and support of the 6 IFLA regional division committees from Asian Oceania, Europe, Latin America, North America, the Caribbean, the Middle East and North America, as well as the Sub-Saharan Africa. Okay. Maybe I just go in this way. Good. So today's session is dedicated to examine the impact of open science in our field under the theme Open Science Unveiled, Empowering Knowledge Sharing in the Digital Age. If you have any questions for our speakers, please don't hesitate to use the question and answer function of the Zoom webinar to submit them. The recording of this webinar with the PowerPoint files of the speaker can be found on the event webpage later. And please mute yourself for good quality recording. Thank you very much for your cooperation. And then, before passing the floor to the speakers, please don't forget to click the CC button to choose subtitles in your preferred language displayed on the screen. Please note that while the translations may not be flawless, it can assist in understanding the content. Now, let me introduce you to our esteemed speakers who will be enlightening us with their insights. We are delighted to have with us Dr. Wendy Hai-Ying Wong. Dr. Wendy Wong is the Senior Assistant Librarian, Scholarly Communication at the Po Yu Kong Library of Hong Kong Polytechnic University. She has formerly the Research Data Librarian and Counsel on Library and Information Resources Postdoctoral Fellow Digital Scholarships at the Chinese University of Hong Kong Library. Dr. Wong has been responsible for establishing and providing research data science services at the 2 universities. She was awarded her PhD degree in music by the Chinese University of Hong Kong and Master of Science in Library and Information Science by the University of Illinois, Urbana-Champaign. Dr. Wong is currently a member of the Advisory Committee on Open Science and Scholarship and Big Data Special Interest Group at IFLA. Joining Wendy is Reid Bond. Dr. Bond is Research Data Systems Manager of Purdue University Libraries. She managed the Purdue University Research Repository, provides data management and sharing support for campus researchers, and works with collaborators and partners across campus in support of researchers. Dr. Bond earned a PhD in Information Science from the University of Tennessee and did a postdoctoral fellowship in data and software creation at the University of Notre Dame. Her research interests explores the intersections between the technical and human infrastructures for research data management, data repository, and the study of interdisciplinary collaborative networks. At last, but certainly not least, we have Ayana Laballe, Chair of the IFLA Sub-Sahara Africa Regional Division Committee, who will be masterfully overseeing our Q&A session. She will facilitate dialogue after presentation, so please have your questions ready. This will be followed by a wrap-up from the chairs and representatives of all 6 regional division committees, including Janet Labonde Ramos, Chair of the IFLA Latin America and Caribbean Regional Division Committee, Fatmi Karafadin, Information Coordinator of the IFLA Middle East and North Africa Regional Division Committee, Ayana Laballe, Chair of the IFLA Sub-Sahara Africa Regional Division, Arturo Sidman, Chair of the Europe Regional Division Committee, Diane Cohen, Chair of North America. Before I hand over the floor to our first speaker, please allow me a few minutes to introduce the important IFLA's 2022 statement on the open access. The IFLA Advisory Committee on Open Science and Scholarship has advanced the work of Open Access Working Party, contributing significantly to the 2022 IFLA statements on open access. These statements underscores the essential role of free and immediate access to research outputs to address global challenges, emphasizing the removal of paywalls, enhancing access across disciplines, and promoting equitable information sharing, especially in crisis. It advocates inclusivity in open access by supporting marginalized communities and bibliodiversity in publication. The statement also ties open access to combating misinformation and aiding policymaking, linking it to the Sustainable Development Goals, especially target 16.10, which focuses on public access to information as a fundamental right. Open access practices aligned with the FAIR principles are crucial for the open science movement, enhancement global research participation, and requiring investment in skills and infrastructures to ensure effective access and preservation. As open access enters its 3rd decade, the urgency for broader and deeper implementation grows. IFRA has undertaken key actions to promote open access globally, including the engagement with international bodies. IFRA has advocated with organizations like the United Nations and the World Bank to adopt open access policies, aiming to extend open access global impact. Also, advocacy for inclusion in the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. IFLA has advocated for including universal literacy and access to information within Sustainable Development Goal 16.10, highlighting open access as crucial for accessing government and research data. And in addition, transition to open access publication. IFLA is shifting its conference papers and publications to open access to improve the accessibility and also dissemination of library and information science research. These initiatives reflect IFLA's commitment to enhancing global access to information and knowledge. IFLA is intensifying its effort to strengthen and expand open access through several strategies actions, including raising awareness. IFLA will promote the rights-based aspects of open access, highlighting its role in intellectual freedom and expressions through its commitments, United Nations submissions, and national advocacy. In addition, international advocacy is important too. IFRA will push for rights retentions by researchers, adoptions of permissive licensing, and sustainable business models that compile with open access mandates to promote public, trust knowledge, and bibliodiversity. Moreover, building partnerships is the third items I would like to discuss here. Collaborations with organizations will enhance open access advocacy, tying it to broader issues like information poverty, open government, and the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. Promotion of sustainable investment is another issue that we may need to pay attention to. IFLOT will seek to foster investment in open access infrastructures. In addition, leading by example, IFLA aims to transition all its publication to open access by 2023, and these initiatives reflect IFLA's commitment to improving global access to information and supporting a well-informed free society through open access. So please access further information on the IFLA's open access statement online if you are interested after the webinar. And I'll now turn the things over to our first speaker, Dr. Wendy Haiyan Wong. Dr. Wong, please take the floor.
Thank you, Helen. Let me first share my screen. So you can see my screen and hear my voice, right?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. Today, I'd like to share with you on the topic, Embracing Open Science, Actions for Librarians and Information Professionals. Before we think in details the actions for librarians and information professionals, I will first introduce some ideas on what open science is and the steps towards it. While there have been many publications on the events on open science in European countries, I will also share the initiatives that move towards open science in Hong Kong, where I am working in. As a committee member of the IFLA's Open Science and Scholarship Advisory Committee, OSSAC, I will also inform you about the action plans of the committee. With this as the foundation, we will consider the role and actions of librarians and information professionals in supporting the Open Science Initiative. With the target 16.10 of the Sustainable Development Goals, SDG, of the United Nations, which encourage ensuring public access to information and protects fundamental freedoms, the UNESCO recommended in its recommendation on Open Science 2021 that open science aims at making scientific knowledge openly available, accessible, and reusable for everyone. For open science, other than the word open, we should also consider the other keyword, science. For scientific knowledge, it refers not only to the applied science disciplines, but also the natural and social science, and also the humanities. The recommendation also suggested increasing scientific collaboration and sharing of information for the benefits of science and society, and opening the processes of scientific knowledge creation, evaluation, and communication to societal actors beyond the traditional scientific community. It recommends that the information is accessed and utilized not only by the scholarly communities, but also by the societal actors or citizens in the society, thus involving citizen science. Using open science as a framework for scholarly communications, the academic research by researchers is bridged to the society, and this is bi-directional. With reference to the recommendation, open science covers 4 paradigms. As you can see on this graph, the green one, open scientific knowledge, the violet one, open science infrastructures. The orange, open engagement of societal actors, and the blue one, open dialogue with other knowledge systems. Open scientific knowledge refers to the open access of scientific publications, open research data, open educational resources, and open source software and hardware. These resources are often deposited on platforms such as repositories and archives for open access. These platforms are discussed under the open science infrastructure category, the violet one, and it could be virtual or physical. Besides having the researchers involved in the research, new forms of collaboration and work, such as crowdfunding, crowdsourcing, and scientific volunteering, are set up. Societal actors, citizens, and community also take part in the generation of knowledge. This enhances communications and dialogues between researchers, policymakers, and community members, and creates an open dialogue with other knowledge systems. These other systems include different knowledge holders, such as indigenous peoples, marginalized scholars, and the local communities. While most audience here today are librarians or information professionals, our role is to promote the open science initiative to researchers and support them on their path towards open science. In traditional research, researchers publish only the research articles, but rarely the others. When we ask them to share other forms of research outputs, such as data and software, they will feel that they are losing their assets in research. On this, we have to educate the researchers on the benefits of open science. Here are a few of them. When we open up our research results and process, this arouses the attention of other researchers. This enhances our visibility and research impact. It may also create opportunities for collaborations and idea exchange of research skills. Furthermore, when the ideas of open science are promoted in different countries and culture, research in different languages will be shared. Multilingual scientific knowledge will thus be openly available, accessible, and reusable by other researchers, societal actors, and communities beyond the research spectrum. In order to move towards open science, there are several steps we may consider. First, putting our research publication open access (OA) is a movement that has been promoted for more than a decade. In this graph, you can see the number of publications on Gold OA, that is the yellow, the golden line, which grants immediate public access, has increased from 260,000 in 2013 to 1.3 million in 2023. Its percentage over the overall global publications has increased from 11% of 2013 to 38% of that in 2023. This is according to the STM, the International Association Scientific, Technical, and Medical Publishers. While we see open access is gaining more acceptance from researchers, publishers, and institutions, we can also further the open science initiatives by opening up research data, educational resources, software, and hardware. In some countries, pre-registration of research projects is also promoted. If you are interested in this, the Center for Open Science can provide you with more information. While open science encourages involvement of persons beyond traditional researchers, that is encouraging citizen science, we should also consider how various stakeholders in our society can participate in researches and their outcomes. In the tertiary institutions in Hong Kong, various measures have been implemented to promote open science. They include the institutional research archives, which feature researchers' profiles. They allow the public to discover the research outputs, such as publications and presentations in various formats, and grants information. Some publications which are under open access are also accessible through these institutional research archives. For some non-open access publications, the preprints or postprints of the publications may also be available on the archives too. An increasing number of institutions in Hong Kong have set up research data repositories to promote open science. The data space at Hong Kong Universities of Science and Technology, HKUST, and the Data Hub of the University of Hong Kong, HKU, have the longest histories. They have been set up for more than 5 years. The Chinese University of Hong Kong CHK Research Data Repository has also been established for nearly 4 years. In the past year, the Hong Kong Polytechnic University PolyU Research Data Repository and Ningland Data Repository have also been launched. They support researchers to share their data for reuse. It should be noted that the repositories of the HKUST, CHK, PolyU, and Ningland University are all implemented with Dataverse, an open source software which is developed by the Harvard University. This further emphasizes the open software concept in open science. The open source software also allows flexibilities in customization by individual institutions and users. Some university libraries in Hong Kong also digitize their collections, including but not limited to manuscripts and audiovisual resources, for openly accessible from their websites without geographical boundaries. The CHK Digital Repositories covers resources from Chinese medicine, oracle bones, to map and life of Chinese in different countries, among others. The HKU Digital Collection presents many collections about Hong Kong, like radio drama, and Hong Kong Tourism Board. The digital collection at the PolyU Library offers digital resources on history of Hong Kong and China, as well as manuscripts of composers and lyricists. The digital special collection at City University of Hong Kong offers access to digital resources of English law special collections and others. Some universities have also been using their digital collections for digital scholarship or digital humanities initiatives. These are the examples from HKUST, CUHK, and Hong Kong Baptist University. Other than the open institutional research archives, data repositories, and institutional repositories, some universities are acting further to encourage open science. The Open Books Hong Kong is a joint project launched a few months ago by the Chinese University of Hong Kong, City University of Hong Kong, and the University of Hong Kong. It aims at promoting open access to monographs in Chinese and published by the university presses of these universities. Currently, there are 9 books available for open access in this project. More books will be available in the future. Furthermore, the Chinese University of Hong Kong and CNKI collaborate to set up an open access mega-journal project. This journal focuses on social science, arts, and humanity topics. They have written a report on the initiatives of this project, and it can be accessed via this link. These are some selected services and activities in Hong Kong to support open science. What about happenings on open science around the IFLA? Following the 2022 IFLA Statement of Open Access, which Helen has mentioned, the Open Science and Scholarship Advisory Committee, OSSAC, at IFLA was established in early 2024. The committee comprises 22 members from around the globe. They joined force to raise awareness among federations and shape opinions and debates around open access and library values. We have quarterly meetings. In order to raise the awareness of open science and scholarship and engage with partners and stakeholders, we have proposed the following projects and events in 2024 and 25 Action Plan. First, moving the IFLA journal to be an open access journal. By the end of this term, we expect the IFLA journal to be financially sustainable and freely available to publish in and read. Second, we consolidate views from library perspectives on rights retention and secondary publication rights. We look forward to some best practice examples and case studies. Third, we will discuss on the equity and inclusion in open science. We will collate practices around what resources can be open and what cannot be, with reference to the care and fair data principles and the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples. Lastly, our working team at IFLA has created an open access vocabulary, which was published in April. It consists of some major vocabularies about open science and open access in different languages with their definitions. The committee will continue to enhance this vocabulary by including more keywords and translations in different languages. To accomplish the aims of the committee, we participate in different events. While the IFLA Information Futures Summit is taking place later in this September in Brisbane, Australia. The Open Science and Scholarship Advisory Committee is co-hosting with the Advisory Committee on Copyright and Other Legal Matters, CLM, on 3rd of October, a one-day associated event, Open Data Challenges and Opportunities for Change. If you are coming to the summit in Brisbane, please look out for this event. Furthermore, in 2025 World Library Information Congress, OSSAC is also planning for a session. This is what's happening around IFLA on open science. Looking back on us, librarians on information profession or information professionals, what are our roles and what are our actions to advocate open science? Open science is the trend for research and the information management. As a librarian or information professional, our role is to advocate open science to researchers and different societal actors. Opening and sharing their research resources is a fresh idea to some researchers. We would have to educate them on the benefits of open science. For instance, open access of publications can enhance their research visibility and impact. Open data can increase the opportunity for collaborations. Citizen science involves different societal actors and citizens to input their ideas in knowledge creation and make use of knowledge from research. The most important of all, open science can make good use of funding from various sources. Besides reaching out to researchers, we should also set up in advance open science infrastructure for the use by researchers where necessary. They include, but not limited to, institutional research archives, data repositories, and institutional digital collections. While researchers are in the process of opening up their research, we should also provide them with technical support. We may guide them on the meaning of different colors of open essays. We may advise on the steps on depositing data. We may also introduce our open resources to the society for their reuse. As we also act as an agent between researchers and publishers, we should also communicate with publishers on the measures to support open science for researchers, such as the arrangements for article processing charges (APC). I hope these few suggestions shed some light on how we librarians and information professionals can advocate open science, which will elevate the next stage of information management and knowledge creation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Wong, for that informative and inspiring presentation. We are now turn to our next speaker, Dr. Bong. Dr. Bong, please, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. I will share my screen here. Can you all see and hear me?
Yes, very clearly.
Wonderful, wonderful. Well, I want to say just thank you and how honored I am to be here to speak with you all and meet you today. I'm very excited to share, and it was wonderful, Wendy, to hear all of the different things that are going on in your area in Hong Kong, and to understand the worldwide perspective on everything, because I think, you know, a lot of times in the US, we don't get to hear as much as we would like to from around the world. And so this is a wonderful, wonderful experience. So in terms of where I am coming from, I work for Purdue University, and I'm the manager for our research data repository. And you may say, why is there a cat here? And that's because our acronym is PUR. So that's what we're known for. One of the overarching things that I'd like to share, this is kind of something that I think about a lot, is that the power, I believe, in open science is that it has the ability to unify us across the world. And I see that in the work that we're doing, and how many of these issues that we talk about are linked and have developed at a global level. And so these are 5 things that I will look at today. I want to talk a little bit about reproducibility and how that goes into transparency and integrity of research. And also talking about some of the large societal issues that really necessitate having more interdisciplinary work, that, you know, a lot of the time, this is something that we really need the open data to be able to access and discover. And then the ability to counter some of the misinformation that circulates and really ultimately leads to a greater public understanding of science, as well as that agency to I guess, to give the folks who are the data is about, the data that they need for their world, to actually be a integral part of the work itself and the science itself. And I put this quote down here because I think that this has been something that I've thought about a lot too, and that you know, a lot of times we have a myth that that it's not efficient. And I think that one of the things that is important for me to remember, and things that I speak with researchers about, is that it has human value. And so that's the big important takeaway that I try to share. So just to kind of speak a little bit about, I will talk a lot about open data today because that's the kind of my perspective a lot, but I do see a lot of connections here, and I believe you will as well. So when I think about open repositories and how they, like you were saying, Wendy, they really promote open science. They are the infrastructure with which we can provide that data and that information and public access to people. And then part of that is through the open data as part of that whole picture. And this is a little bit to share about how we think about our work at PER being both human and technical support, being an integrated campus support system beyond the library to do outreach across with our Office of Research. And beyond the online platform, then we also kind of take on a role as data stewards. To move into research reproducibility and open data and how it engenders honesty and rigorous research, as well as the respect for all of the people who will be using this data, I found this to be a very powerful example of an individual who was discussing her work and found these problems, and how she ultimately said, I will admit that I did something that was not correct. And so here I am to provide this example as somebody who wants my research to be transparent and respectful. And this may be a result of somebody else, looking at her data and saying, oh, actually I see this. And ultimately, that's one of those things that we then learn from across the board. So the idea that we really are facilitating that understanding of each other and opening up the eyes of the people who did the research, and to make sure that when we then share it, that the public has the trust. And if you're interested, there is a website called Retraction Watch that you may have heard of before, but it is very interesting to see the different things that happen, especially the researchers that speak up, I think. Types of reproducibility, these are kind of the three things that we work with researchers on, is that the computation is one part where they are able to get the same numbers as somebody else did. So ultimately, they may be not necessarily running the same actual study, but they are using the code and the data to get those same numbers. With the methods, you are actually doing everything the same. And that will, and when you do that, then you get the same results. So that's one very, I would say, maybe stringent or strong understanding of reproducibility or reuse. And then the results, you may be not using the same data, you're collecting new data, but you're using the same methods. So these are just three ways that folks that, who work with repositories are really working to continue to make data as usable for as many people as possible. And to give a little bit of a kind of open science perspective from federal agencies, federal funders who fund our researchers, there's, I would say, a continuum. And this is something that, this is from NASA, from specifically the Earth Science Data Systems, which is a world I've worked in before in previous studies. And so you can just see how sometimes there is the need to have this, black box culture that they had before, where it's, nobody can see, up to, this free unlimited access and the different types of like the green journal publications, like you mentioned, Wendy. And so the specific environments, and then all the way up to actually being able to use this data for so many different types of work. So I like to see how this is being framed, and also how hopefully we're starting to move forward with this as much as we can. Here, I'd just like to take a minute to do some myth busting and talk about some misconceptions. And these are things that I hear at my institution and we talk about in various venues, and you all may be very familiar with hearing some of these things as well. And so some things to, when folks would come and ask about this, that we can kind of utilize to help understand. And, I think that there is always been in many of our disciplinary cultures, this understanding that open journals might be predatory. And really knowing, as I'm speaking to the people who know so well, that these are often peer-reviewed, highly cited, and very well respected, I would say, especially in the information science world. There's among researchers who are sharing their data, there's a big fear of being scooped. And you may have heard that term before, but really the idea that somebody will steal your idea and your processes before you get a chance to do it. And that it's something, Wendy, I believe you mentioned this too, in terms of pre-registration and the ability to say, this is what I will do, and this is me, and I have this very easy, persistent identifier to show you. The idea that it takes too much time, that is kind of the phrase that we say. My dad says, penny wise and pound foolish. It's very easy to want to do exactly what is, cheapest, fastest, but then in the long term, you don't get the benefits and the world doesn't get the benefits. So that's one thing. And another thing, and this is, I think, imagine this is significant around the world, is that the idea of the file drawer effect, where many times studies don't get published because they don't have significant findings, that their p-value is insignificant in the quantitative studies. And so, and this is the idea that that's not worth sharing, but at the same time, and this is something that I imagine that many of us have learned over the years, is how important those the mistakes are to how we learn and how we grow, and that they're actually very beneficial to more than our world, or than our specific world. To give a little bit of context on the open science kind of, I would say these would be mandates, and how a lot of times in the US we think about it and really kind of focus on this, which I imagine is very difficult, and like looking at hearing about the UNESCO and the United Nations. And I would say I hope that the US can eventually move forward beyond simply the federal mandates. So we had two different memos that came out, one in 2013, and that really brought the rise of, excuse me, open science into, I believe, the researchers' eyes, and how the library worked with folks. And so the first one, you can see they want to increase access. In the second one, in 2022, they've really brought this forward to ensure that everybody has equitable access. So you can see that there is an attention to both making sure that the public is aware of what's happening, but then also how are they fully able to use it? And so these memos are actually requirements of the different agencies, and then the agencies from there make their policies. So it will take a long time for things to eventually bloom, but they are there and continue to be both a challenge and a very important thing. To give a couple of different stories, I think one of the really poignant things, and I imagine that many of you all have heard of this, is the Flint water crisis. And this was about April 2014. And I think one of the big things was when this happened, there wasn't data sharing and there wasn't even data available to the public. So it was difficult to speak about things and know about things that were happening without the exact view of the chemical components and the ability to access that and to then take that into your everyday understanding and how you make the arguments. So I would say that data really has an impact on environmental justice here, the openness. And additionally, I think it protects us in a lot of ways. It protects the public from all of the different issues that come up. And this company Theranos is obviously, you know, something that's very, very unsettling, and looks at a false method for diagnosing individuals' diseases. And this timeline of this, in a lot of the writing that they do, they say sharing was not happening. None of the data from the studies was open. And so at the same time, this happened for years and years. And there were lots of agreements with pharmaceutical companies and things like that. And eventually they found out that it was not viable and, you know, hurt a lot of people. So these are some things in terms of protection and agency that the open data is really providing specifically to the public. And to kind of, this is from the Center of Open Science, and when you spoke about the Center for Open Science and the Open Science Framework, and I really liked this pyramid that they have. And I think these are a lot of things that we as information science professionals are, you know, able to kind of internalize and show through the work that we do with our researchers, with our students, and that, you know, in terms of how we do our infrastructures, making it very easy to work with and possible. That's always the big challenge, especially as the data gets larger, as the publications and the data get more complex, there's more materials. And then having the ability to really make that incentive be intrinsic to the individual researcher, which I see more and more happening, and that is very heartening. To talk a little bit more about inclusivity and how we work as information professionals, I do notice and believe that we have really a lot of ability to make a difference. And I want to mention this gentleman, Ricardo Levins Morales, and his art, and you can see his studio online. But I think that this phrase, nothing about us without us is for us. And so in that sense, not only are we working with open scholarship, open science, but we're doing it in a way that is, I'm trying to think of the right word, authentic, respectful, and actually includes the community. And that only in that way can we really have open data. So you all are familiar with the FAIR principles, I believe, in many cases. And I like this diagram because it talks about the meaningful interaction and the persistentness of the ability to discover things, that it needs to be consistent throughout time. And that we're really doing that full disclosure when we're sharing all of the information that we're sharing. So that's something, of course, that we try to explain, but explain in a way that's very much palatable and doesn't necessarily have the acronym, but really speaks to it in a way that the researchers can understand how this relates to their work. And as well as care, which Wendy you mentioned, and this really, I believe, has been one of the just a huge step forward for the communities. I believe the work that we do in the repository, and I think there's a lot of discussion about how we change the culture of the way we work with repositories. And I would love to hear more about what repositories around the country or around the world, how they are implementing this into their work, you know, how this is including the communities, including the populations in that development of those that culture. And so here, just want to, I will read the two things specifically, but mention to tell the data stories. And like I had those brief stories, I think that that's one of the big things we can do as, you know, service providers, information professionals, is to make sure that this gets heard, that it gets heard to the people that we work with in terms of that interconnection between the interdisciplinarity to work on our very important societal issues, but then also in terms of taking that care and building that into it. And that we do that through the telling of our data and scholarship stories. And my last kind of slide is considering engagement and implementation in the work that we do. And these are some examples from things that we have done over the years in terms of our dean held a speaker series, and that was wonderful for the researchers. We could hear how they are working with open science and open data. Of course, providing those avenues to actually do the open science in a very accessible way. We look at Love Data Week. We usually do something specific for Love Data Week. We had Valentine's one year, so we were giving out candy hearts that said Purdue loves data. And we did other things, of course, and then there's Open Access Week, and I would love to hear. I know that Love Data is an international initiative, and I would love to hear more about the different things that you all do or ideas that you have, and then of course as well as providing those licenses and knowledge of those licenses, how they're applied, and also in terms of like open source software and how we make that open through the different types of licenses, as well as data and publications. And then this is kind of my final takeaway is that we as information professionals work in terms of leading the way. And so in terms of the work that I do, hoping to use as many open access resources and publish in as many places that I can to provide open access and require open data sharing. And I want to say thank you all. And that's my presentation.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Dr. Bo, for that insightful presentation. So we are now joined by John Wicks, the CPDWL Information Coordinator. So Jones will introduce us to the Library of Congress freely accessible science databases. John, the floor is yours. John, I think you need to unmute yourself. We cannot hear you.
Oh, thank you. Sorry with that. And hello,
we can
everyone.
Hear you now.
Yeah, thank you so much. I'm so excited to present about the Library of Congress free scientific e-resources. And I'm head of the MIRI section in the African and Middle Eastern Division, and we're recommending officers, and we've recommended all these e-resources that I'm presenting today, and they're freely accessible from the electronic online resources catalog. And if you just put this URL, https://eresources.loc.gov, it's comprised of databases that have full bibliographic records, abstracts, documents, and statistics. And today I'm going to be talking about all the scientific disciplines that are in this database. There are also e-journals and electronic of all sorts of print e-journals and e-journal publications and e-books, a selection of print books through database subscriptions, and websites that are freely accessible that have been recommended by our library staff. And here's what the opening screen looks like. When you come in, if you do know the name of the database, you simply can type it in the keyword search. But today, I wanted to focus on scrolling down this page until you get to science and technology. And here you see the listing of all the different scientific disciplines that you can click on the link, and then you get the selected resources for your researcher. Now, is it free or is it on-site only? There are a lot of these e-resources that are simply only available on site because they're proprietary information. However, there is a wealth of free access and you can access those from anywhere in the world, just simply with an internet connection. So here we've gone into applied science, engineering, and technology, and I'm putting out here at the top where you see free access for this AATA online resource, and 156,000 records available. Also, this academiajournals.com, free access. Any of those you can get to. Here we see academic search complete from EBSCO. That means it can only be used on site. Okay, I'm going to click on this contents of resource link. Now I see the whole schema of this. It lists the description, the complete provisions, and here it connects to the database directly, and it provides you with all sorts of connection and access. Now, I'm going to link on with Reed about accessibility. Not all of our patrons have English proficiency, or perhaps they just need a little help with that. I'm going to recommend, and I do this for my researchers all the time, translate.google.com. You simply pop in our e-resources link, and since I'm the Turkic specialist, I'm going to say it into Turkish. And when I pop that in, all I need to do is instantly put it in, and this database translates into Turkish, and the researcher can then perhaps have a little bit better handle on what they're finding. So Helen, that's it. That's what I'm trying to share today. Please use the electronic resources from the Library of Congress.
Thank you, Jones. So now it is my pleasure to introduce Ayana Labelle, who will lead our interactive Q&A segment as the chair of the Sub-Sahara Africa, the Regional Division Committee at IFLA. Ayana brings an extensive wealth of knowledge that will undoubtedly enrich our discussion. Ayana, we are all set for your facilitations of the Q&A session. The floor is now yours.
Thank you, Helen. Good afternoon, everybody. We've had a beautiful presentation from our presenters. I'll field the question. Let me just start with you, Joanne. Joanne, just a quick one before we let you off. Are we all, is it okay if all of us, we can link these free databases to our library catalogs?
Oh, the free databases from the Library of Congress. Yes, they're just links. We put the system called Electronic Resources of the that EROC catalog. It's a specific way of putting the metadata into this system that presents this access and linkage to us. And that screen is available to everyone. And that's what we have recommending officers have done. I got a Kazakh journal and I went to Iraq committee. They created the records for it and then they put it into the Iraq database system. So if people have things they want to send, we can recommend and put them into that catalog system. Or if you want to link out and you see some that you think would be cool in your system too, you can should be able to ingest them into your system.
Oh, thank you very much. That's good for our collection building. Wendy, Dr. Wendy, let me start with you. You made a reference to engaging or including giving societal access. Other than just consuming, how else do you think the society, other than the researchers, how are they benefiting from the institutional repositories or from the open access movement? Would you take that briefly, please?
Thank you for the question. Do you mean how the researchers or how the citizens benefit?
The citizens.
How the citizens. In fact, when our researchers publish their research in articles or publish their research data, for example, the policymakers from the government can make use of this information, for example, from the details in the data or from how the source code is made use of in the research project. That this data could be useful to the policymaker in making further policies in the future. Also, while as Rich also mentioned, reproducible of research data is very important in research because even if researchers produce their research, some non-academic staff, maybe from the journalism or from the community, they would like to further reproduce the research and further enhance on that or giving further insights on those research. This can be beneficial to further society as well. So open science is beneficial to both the research field as well as to the society.
Okay, thank you very much. Still on you, Wendy, Dr. Wendy, you gave us, you indicated the creation of the open access vocabulary. I don't know whether we call it the dictionary or but it's a reference source. I wish to establish whether when you say it's translated into other languages, do you mean the IFLA official languages or even my language, it can be translated into that? Can you unpack that briefly, please?
That is for that vocabulary, it is online. Let me see if I can put the link online. So from this link, you can find the vocabulary which was published in April, and we are further enhancing on that, and we look forward for further enhancement, polishing, adding more languages. For example, open science, how it is translated into Chinese, Arabic, and in the future, we may also have French or other languages in the vocabulary. So the English term is there, and then the definition and where the source is tabled in the document. And then we also have members may having in their native language in different languages, and this file include their translation in different translations. So if you find any members on the floor, if you find that your language is not in and your language is not included yet in the document and you would like to contribute to the document, you may also contact me and we can further work on how to make further translation in different languages. And those languages are what we are originally aiming at the United Nations official languages. So if we would like to further other languages other than that, we may also talk to the chair on how it could be managed.
Thank you very much. The next question that comes, it's for both of you, Dr. Wendy and Dr. Reed. You both have a history. You have a history of institutional repositories or open access. Let me start with you, Reg, so that we give Wendy a little break. The challenges that you are experiencing now, let's start with the challenges at takeoff and the challenges that you continuously inherit as even the system matures. What are those challenges? Let me start with Reed. What key challenges were you experiencing? How did you manage that? Were they resolved or they just keep on taking a different shape as the project grows?
Understand. Yeah, I think that one of the things that there's components of that fair that we continue to run into, and that would be the interoperability and the reusability. And so these kind of show up in different places over time and in different contexts. So a lot of times when you're working with a researcher, they may need something that the infrastructure is not able to provide, or that idea, that data, or the code and all of the materials are too large to actually transfer functionally. So these are the things that we continue to troubleshoot, as well as some in terms of some of the misnomers or some of the fears that we run into with opening up scholarship and opening up data.
Okay, I'll get back to you when we talk of the myths. Let's hear what Dr. Wendy has to say. Challenges, how are they growing? How are they evolving?
In fact, as a research data librarian in the past few years as Chinese University of Hong Kong, and also now at Polytechnic University, what I face is that it is difficult in Hong Kong to invite researchers to share and deposit data because they find that these are their assets in research. If they share their research data, it will be difficult for them to make further insights on the research data. Because it's not yet a policy in Hong Kong for researchers to share the data, but many institutions have been promoting and acting on open access of publications, for example, articles, research articles, and conference papers, but not research data. So working as research data librarian in the past few years, the challenge is to invite researchers to share their data.
Mm-hmm. They obviously don't come to table because of the myths, which is what Reed talked of. Dr. Reed, you mentioned the myths and the actualities. As a librarian, we know the actualities. How then do you bridge the myth? They have the myth, we have the actualities. What challenges do you encounter in trying to come to the same level with each other?
Oh, that's a really good question. I think that some of this is outreach. Some of this is letting the campus know that we are here and these are the things that we do, and we can help you with this, and really start from the very beginning in talking about things positively, but with the consideration of the the perspectives of the researchers. And I think there's a lot of disciplinary culture that that we are learning about and trying to help dispel some of those myths that come from that specific world. Business is one specifically in the US, and not to call out business at all, because my father is a business professor, but just seeing those misnomers in those specific areas, maybe we speak to it more directly, I think.
Mm-hmm. Okay, I'll invite you as my audience or the participant. If you have any question, please drop it in the chat box, and then we'll take it up. The next question relates to the natural digital divide that always exists in whichever area you want to look into. How do you pick? How do you manage the digital divide in the uptake of open access in your universities for both of you? Is there a divide? What comes out more pronounced in the divide? And how do you bridge it? I'm more interested in how do we bring each other to the same level? You want to start with that one, Wendy?
Can you clarify what digital device you are referring to?
Even in the presence of as much technology as you may have, there are still those people whose uptake is very slow. And there's usually the ones that take up technology very quickly. So despite having the technologies, there is always that digital divide. Other than the techno divide, there is, should I say, the people divide, the social divide that keeps societies at two different levels. How do you bridge it such that you have a fair participation in the open access platforms or arena?
Okay. I think for some people who are technologically more advanced, they have no difficulty in accessing digital resources online and from around the globe through the internet. So the main concern goes to those who are less having less strength on the technical aspects. So I think as a librarian, we aim to help and support research all patrons to the library in accessing resources. If for those coming to a university library like ours, we would still give some workshop on how to manage technological skills. And we may have one-to-one consultations, so these can help them to learn some skills. Other than the one-to-one consultations, we also have workshops, even to the not university level in Hong Kong, even some mobile network provider. They also provide some training resources to or some training courses to elderlies in Hong Kong. So they know how to use mobile device to access on information from the internet. For the public libraries in Hong Kong, we also have some technical skills training workshops for the public. So it goes to the old and the youngsters. So we hope we can minimize the difference between the technologically skills difference between different peoples. So the scope, the open science can benefit all people in the society.
Okay, you want to respond to that, Reid?
Oh, certainly. I think in terms of, I see two different parts of this, one from the campus perspective and then one from the public access the information and the data. I think that for the campus, a lot of times the academic, especially the large, they call it Research One universities, and some of you may have heard that or work with the different levels as well. But that there is a attention towards funded research, so having the grants and the fellowships. And so it almost is the case that in terms of resources and training and support of individuals, that it really has, that it is from the Office of Research and from our administration very much gets the resources and gets the notoriety and the trainings and things like that because of their, I guess, popularity and the revenue that they bring to the university. So in terms of having the technology that they need, a lot of times that's very difficult for them to get and fund. And from our side, having limited, we are definitely often have to make choices. So that is on the campus side. In terms of the open access and the public, we are less engaged in that at the university, but what I see happening, and a lot of times these are collaborative projects with folks who work in the federal government from the data and information open access world, is that they're making tools to allow some very, I guess, easily accessible ways to look at data in sort of in terms of like mapping, in terms of providing information about the different variables. I do think that that's something that definitely needs more discussion, because a lot of times these tools are not built by the people who need it, or not in collaboration. So I think that's one thing that we will continue to.
Hi,
Yes.
Ellen. You'd let me know
Yeah.
if we are running out of time,
Yeah.
if we have enough time, because we are getting excited.
Yeah.
There is,
Thank you very much. You have hosted a very successful Q&A sessions. And yes,
Helen?
thank you, Ayana.
Ellen, let me throw in some take homes that are coming from the chat box here. There is, yes, a comment on researchers being very overprotective with their content, and we having to manage that. And there is a call for having all these being part of the university strategies. The broader strategic plan should include advocacy for open access. And then the one last one here is that we need to, the government-funded research policies, they must insist in having open access. There are so many exciting questions that are coming through. I think we'll curate them, we'll keep them for you, our participants, and then we would share.
Yeah.
And the slides, they will be shared online, so you'll continue developing and engaging with the authors in good time. I thank you so much. Thank you, Ellen.
Thank you, Ayanda. So as we approach the conclusion of today's enriching discussions, as you can see, I want to extend my heartfelt thanks to all the speakers and participants for the invaluable contribution. It is now to my privilege to invite the chairs of the six and the representatives of the six IFLA regional division committees to provide a summary of the key lessons and insights from our webinar. So first, we will hear from Ayanda Labelle, the chair of the IFLA Sub-Sahara Africa Regional Division, who has expertly facilitated our Q&A sessions, and she will be followed by the chairs and representatives from Latin America and Caribbean, the Middle East and North America and North Africa, North America, and Asia Oceania regional division committees. So each offering their unique perspectives. So I'll pass the floor to Ayanda.
Thank you, Helen. I'll be very brief because I'm taking advantage of having been on the floor. So I'll just say these are beautiful lessons that we can take at the regional level. We can take also at our country level. There is a lot that we still need to do in most of our countries because, like we indicated earlier, we don't have any policy or any structure that compels. So it's still mainly at the voluntary level. So we will pick lessons from how you did it until you got to that mature stage, because I noticed you have a long history in the open access field. We are progressing in other countries. So we will tap in from your expertise. I thank you.
Thank you, Arianda. And Janet Lebon Ramos.
Yes, thank you, Helen. I will do my summary in Spanish so I can express myself better. So, agradezco a la doctora Wendy Joyan y a la doctora Ray Bowen por sus inspiradoras presentaciones y las valiosas ideas y sugerencias que nos han compartido en la mañana de hoy. Es evidente que los proyectos que se han desarrollado tanto en Hong Kong, ¿verdad?, que nos han presentado durante este evento, son ejemplos de un enfoque transformador que promueve la transparencia y la colaboración en la investigación. Las ciencias abiertas han sido un paso muy importante que abren puertas al acceso libre a la información científica, y con todo esto yo quiero enfatizar en lo que mencionó la doctora Bowen, quien dijo que es fundamental que los resultados de la investigación estén disponibles no solo para conocerlos, sino también para aplicarlos en la vida cotidiana. Por su parte, la doctora Hoy también subrayó la importancia de abogar a las ciencias abiertas. La implementación de proyectos como los que mencionó, entre ellos repositorios y otras publicaciones de acceso abierto, son un paso esencial para demostrar o democratizar el conocimiento. Estos proyectos son cruciales para la introducción de recursos abiertos en la sociedad, abriendo puertas a millones de conocimientos y maximizando los beneficios para la comunidad científica y el público en general. No tendría sentido producir tanta información si esta permanece restringida en espacios particulares a los que no tenemos acceso todo el mundo. Así que es necesario garantizar la visibilidad global de la información, los resultados científicos y su uso para impulsar las nuevas investigaciones y nuevos conocimientos. Así que nuevamente gracias por su valiosa información. Les agradezco muchísimo y nos quedamos con todo esto para poder seguir aplicándolo. Gracias.
Yeah, thank you, Jeanette. And then we'll come to have, we are grateful, Safe can be with us. Safe, Jabbar, can you share your thoughts with us? Unmute, yes.
Yeah, thank you. I was asking Fatma to do that, our coordinator in the group. Thank you for the speaker. Thank you very much. It's very inspiring speech, and glad to see my old friend Joe from Library of Congress as well. I'm glad to see you all. Actually, I'm traveling, and as I was waiting for my transport, I joined the session, and it was very interesting. I liked it. The movement of open science and open access actually has affected us, all of us, very positively. Speaking at the MENA region, we have a lot of movement, local movement now in open access. There is the open access depositories are increasing and growing up. Speaking at my university, for example, we have started a very good and a very, I can say, national open access depository. It's called Shoah, which is started a few years back, and it's growing. It's not only covering the university, it's covering the whole country, and it's multi-language. It's in Arabic, in English, and it's serving very well the scientists and researchers from Oman and around the world. There is also the Arabic movement for open access community, which is a very active community. It has a lot of Arabic word, and it's has including there's a upcoming one in I think it will be in December in Morocco. Also, we have the I think it's the Open Science Council Assembly, which will be in Oman next year, early next year in January. And as MENA IFLA region, we are planning to participate with the delegates representing IFLA in this meeting. It's I think when it comes to open science, it's very important for us as a librarian to educate ourselves about it, and our institutions as well, and also our users, be them in the universities or in the communities around us, because it's very beneficial for the researchers and for scientists as well. Thank you, Helen. If Fatma has anything to do.
Thank you very much, and have a safe and enjoyable trip. And then we have another good partner here, Yuturu Semen, the chair of the Europe Regional Division Committee.
Thank you, Helen. First of all, I would like to thank you for organizing this inspiring webinar, and also I would like to thank all our speakers for their valuable speeches and presentations. Actually, we already almost at the end of the session, so I don't want to spend more time, but just I want to express some key points of my understandings of the webinar. The first thing I want to express that the policy, open science policy, is one of the most important part of the open science movement all over the world. And all the regions, IFLA regions and nations have to prepare their open science policy, written open science policies, and we, as librarians, we have to get some supports from politicians and parliaments as well. And the other thing is the money. We need more financial support from the governments and the region governments. For example, in Europe, there is a strong financial and political support by European Commission, and it aims to promote the sharing of research results funded by public resources within all European Union. These are the key points that I want to express for now. Thank you again.
Thank you very much, Yuturu. And then last but not least, we have Diane Cohen, the chair of the Love America. Diane, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, and I second all of the comments. A very interesting morning or evening, and I do want to support what Ertuğrul, my European colleague, just said about the absolute importance for all of us as librarians, no matter the institution, but particularly our research-intensive universities, that we know and support and advocate for the government-funded open science policies. If we don't have the policies in place supporting the work we're doing on the ground, we will always be trying to support from the bottom up. I was really pleased to hear the reference by Dr. Reed about, in the US, the Nelson memo, very important memo from the Deputy Assistant to the President, that all federal agencies are due to issue their draft policies for open science by December 2025. And the Association of Research Libraries just responded to the first draft that came forward from the National Institutes of Health for their draft public access policy. This is important feedback on behalf of our research libraries, and is a leading example of the advocacy work that ARL does in the US and our Canadian Association of Research Libraries in Canada. There's lots of information on the Canadian open science policies. I encourage you to take a look, and let's keep working. Thank you.
Thank you, Diane. Now, before I have my closing remarks, I would like to ask whether Femi,
Yes, Fatmi.
do you have any,
No,
words?
thank you. Thank you very much. And it was a very informative and the only thing I can tell you that we all have almost the same concerns, all librarians, and we all have the same enthusiasm for the open science movement. But in my case, and maybe in other cases, we need this could not be done only by librarians. It should be done with the administration, with the university, with faculty members, with deans. It cannot be done only by librarians. So I would like to outreach to the university administration first to support this movement. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, Femi Terafidin is the information coordinator of the IFLA Middle East and North Africa Regional Division. So as we wrap up today's sessions, I want to express my deepest gratitude to all participants for their active engagement and insightful contributions. Special thanks to our speakers, Dr. Wendy Wong and Dr. Whit Bong, for their thought-provoking presentations, and to Ayana Labelle for her adept moderation of our Q&A sessions. I'm also deeply appreciative of the chairs and representatives of the 6 IFRA regional division committees for their enlightening summaries and the collaborative atmosphere they have fostered throughout this webinar. So special recognitions goes to Ayana, Janet, Yuturo, Diane, Femi, and for their valuable contribution and insightful thoughts on today's discussion, and of course, our CPDWL volunteer, Alexa. To all our attendees, our active participations are what truly enriched this session. And we are deeply grateful to each of you for joining these important conversations on open science. And it's your involvement that makes events like this possible and successful. Thank you very much for your valuable contribution to our dialogue. And thank you once again for joining us. Hopefully next webinar will be in 2025. So thank you and goodbye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
See you next time.